So how do we deal with a president who's hell-bent on killing Americans? Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. But COVID infections now represent the third leading cause of death in America. This is a very contagious, very crippling, very deadly disease. And on top of that, there's a growing legion of people who call themselves long haulers. These are people who are suffering, basically the symptoms never went away. One of them said, every afternoon at 4 o'clock, I get hit by a truck again. Literally couldn't get out of bed for weeks and now can barely get out of bed. Screaming nerve pain, difficulty breathing, chronic fatigue. And that doesn't count the COVID survivors who have now permanent lung damage, heart damage, brain damage, kidney damage, have had strokes, have had heart attacks. These are the most common side effect of COVID is not death. Yeah, it happens around 3% of the time. But the most common side effect are those things that I just described, heart attacks, strokes, and things like that. And very often people do die from them. You know, the latest estimate is that there's probably about 60 or 70,000 deaths in the United States in the last 8 months that were not listed as COVID deaths because, when the EMTs showed up, the person was dead, and they said, well, what are the symptoms? And, well, the left side of his body froze up, and then he couldn't move, and then he couldn't talk, and then, an hour later he died. Or, he grabbed his chest and was having all this pain and fell to the floor and died. Well, it turns out that the stroke and the heart attack were actually caused by COVID. So, facing this simple reality, every developed country in the world is encouraging social distancing and the use of masks to reduce the number of people who are injured, disabled, or killed by this disease. Every country, of course, except the United States of America. And now we've got this coronavirus. It is exploding through the American Midwest. And it's increasingly looking like the thing that spread it across the Midwest was that South Dakota biker convention where 500,000 bikers showed up in one small town in South Dakota. And the governor came out and said, we don't need masks. I think Kristi Noem is her name. No, we don't need masks. It's all good. Don't worry. And all the restaurants open and everybody. And after all the bikers left, the town came down with COVID. And those bikers have COVID and they carried it 500,000 people all over the country. This would have been illegal in pretty much any other state. In fact, the bikers and the Trump rallies are the only, quote, legal, large, maskless events that are going on in the United States. And Trump is like spreading this virus from coast to coast because he wants his ego massaged. He loves those rallies. This is his last chance to have rallies. He loves it when people tell him how much they love him. All those people yelling and screaming. It's what he's dreamed about his whole entire life. And here, and in some bizarre way, he thinks it's going to help him win the election, too. There are psychologists, in fact, Dr. Justin Frank, a professor of psychiatry, he's a psychiatrist at Georgetown University, on this program have speculated that Trump might actually be intentionally exposing his followers to this deadly virus, because deep down inside, he actually hates anybody who trusts him. There was a time in his life, probably when he was 5, 6, 7 years old, according to his niece, Mary, and to Dr. Frank. There was a time in his life when, as a young child, he was very trusting. And then he discovered that he couldn't trust the people around him. He couldn't trust his father. He couldn't trust his mother. Couldn't trust his siblings. He lived in a predatory family, a family where the patriarch, his father, Fred Trump, was a high-functioning sociopath. And so now anybody who trusts him, he immediately assumes at some real deep unconscious level must be up to something. And so, hey, infect them. This is how he treated all 3 of his first wives, having affairs on all of them and betraying repeatedly. I mean, we know of, at least, 10 or 15 just on Melania, just in the couple of years after she gave birth to their son. And what did Melania say? Well, I know who I married. I married him for the money. I mean, it's pretty clear, right? So, but the point is that this is how Donald Trump behaves. He's got several thousand people who've sued him for breaking business contracts. Contracts are supposed to be your word written down so everybody is clear. Donald Trump's word doesn't mean anything. So maybe it's this like deep psychology thing, that's the reason why he's trying to, the Trump death train, the Trump death death tour. Why he's insisting on running this the way he is running it and discouraging people from wearing masks so they will get sick. Maybe it's that deep psychology. Or maybe it's just that he's lazy. He wants to spend all his time, as he has for the first 3.5 years of his presidency, 3 3/4 years now, he wants to spend all his time watching Fox News and playing golf and doesn't want to attend to the actual hard work of governing. And so, Scott Atlas, the radiologist from Fox News who knows nothing about infectious diseases, comes along and says, well, just to go for herd immunity. Yeah, that worked really well with smallpox, didn't it? No, it didn't. How about measles? No, it didn't. How about polio? No, it didn't. In fact, no infectious disease in the history of humanity has ever been dealt with herd immunity. Herd immunity is a phrase that the vaccine industry came up with decades ago to describe the threshold you have to hit of vaccination before you no longer have to worry about a disease being active. And for measles, for example, it's 94%. If your vaccination rate with measles goes below 94%, you start having outbreaks. So God only knows what the herd immunity level is for COVID, particularly since people are getting it a second time. But here we go. And now you've got some political cynics saying that here's a third reason why Trump is trying to spread this virus as far and wide as he can. To hand Joe Biden a screaming, flaming disaster. It's like, the old cliche of the teenagers who fill a bag with dog poop, set it on your front step, and then light the bag on fire. I mean, that's what Donald Trump is trying to give to Joe Biden when he comes into office. In fact, he went out of his way yesterday to say, if Biden gets elected, he's going to listen to the scientists. Oh, my God. I mean, that's his indictment of Joe Biden. He's going to listen to the scientists. But more Americans have died from this disease than have died in all our wars since World War II combined. And under, in any normal circumstances, that would disqualify any normal politician. Inciting people to kill others? That could even land most Americans in prison. So how do we deal with this after the election? Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Do we go to the Church Committee or the Pike Committee in the House of Representatives like we did after the Nixon administration? How do we deal with this?